Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rediscovering the Federation. I am your host, Josh Pritchett. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rediscovering the Federation. I am your co-host, Josh Pritchett.
And guten Morgen, everyone. Good morning, or I dare say good afternoon, unless you're on the West Coast. I am Chris Pabon. I am Josh's co-host, and I am very pleased that we have a moment to pause, take it all in, a third guest co-host this morning with us.
Dun, dun, dun. Hi, my name is Justin Timpane. I am a writer and director from the Washington, D.C. area, Star Trek fanatic, and the creator of the Trek Off podcast. So, hello.
Oh, welcome, Justin. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello. Jolan True, as my Romulan brothers would say.
Indeed. Well, as my people say, no, nech.
Oh, wow. You could say Nukta e Kuchka e, which is where is a good restaurant. But you could also say Nukta e Kuka e, which is where is a good restroom. You don't want to get those two confused, although in Klingon, it's pretty much the same.
We could debate that.
No, it's okay. Look it up. Everything I just said was true. Pre-prepared joke.
No, what you said about Klingon food, but you know.
It was true from a certain point of view.
Obi-Wan is full of crap.
So we have a lot to get to today. This week's episode. So this was episode 10 for this season, and it was. Chris, you want to start?
Sure. So the situation is, of course, dire. The DMA has come back more powerful than ever, and there's no choice now but to drop everything and head towards the galactic barrier to try to make first contact. And the question is, who will join the mission? And we find out that the president of the Federation decides that this is just too important, and that C is going to join the mission and ask the admiral if he will support the vice president in her place, because people are going to be having a lot of questions. And they head towards the galactic barrier, but not before Mr. Saru decides, since this might be the last time that he's going to see the president, Terina of Navarre, that he is going to tell her that he thinks there might be perhaps something more. And really, this is one of the key things for me of the episode. I want to see what happens with this relationship. But she takes us in and then is called away. And Mr. Saru is left wondering, what perhaps did I do wrong? And to which he asks Dr. Culber, and Dr. Culber says, you did everything right. And apparently he did, because later on, as they're heading towards the galactic barrier, he turns a corner and he finds that there is President Terina. And President Terina explains that their delegate did not arrive on time, and so they decided Navarre needed a presence, so she's coming along for the ride, which gives her more opportunity to talk with Mr. Saru later on. And then we also get a quick flashback to what's going on with Book and Tarka. And Book is getting ready to leave Tarka on a planet that does not have electricity, which really probably was the best idea he's had in several episodes. However, Tarka, because, evil genius is also very convincing, and is he an evil genius? It's something for us to talk about later. He convinces him that they need to go to the galactic barrier, and the galactic barrier is something that Book will not be able to handle on his own, but also conveniently, he has some programmable antimatter. He has a stash that he will lead him to. And so then we go back to the crew of Discovery, and they have come up just a little bit short of the galactic barrier, because as Stamets says, like, the mycelial network kind of dies out the closer you get to the mycelial network. So they hop into warp and they're heading over there. They know time is of the essence. And right before they're about to go through the barrier, they get the president of the Federation comes in and tells Burnham that they have a top secret message encoded for their eyes only. And so they go into the ready room, and the message is broken up, but it's Admiral Vance, and he's saying that the DMA has moved so much more quickly than they had initially anticipated with this Model 2.0, and now it is threatening Earth and Navarre, because as a consequence of its mining, it will create such debris that the debris, even I suppose with Earth's shield, it's going to like destroy both planets. And there's something else, but it's garbled, and Zora can't like make up the message. So then they're left with the question of to tell the crew or not to tell the crew. Josh, do you want to go from there?
Yeah, and Book takes Tarkin to this planet where there's supposed to be programmable antimatter. And when they get there, Book realizes, holy crap, this is an Emerald Chain prison camp. What the hell have you led me into? And Tarkin says, relax, it's abandoned. But I know that there's programmable antimatter here because this is the camp I was stuck with my friend Oros. And then that leads to a series of flashbacks where Tarkin finally talks about his friend from supposedly another reality, another universe, who was also a prisoner and enslaved by the Emerald Chain in order to develop a dilithium-free warp engine. But really, what Oros was building was something we talked about we saw on Deep Space Nine, an interdimensional transporter. Unfortunately, Wright has Tarkin and Oros are about to use it to go to Oros's universe. The Emerald Chain busts in and attacks and tries to shut the project down. Tarkin is able to escape. He is trying to find a way to get back to Oros, but then realizes apparently Oros has escaped to his dimension, and they find the programmable antimatter right where Tarkin left it, and Book decides he's going to give Tarkin one more chance to do this, that he can trust him now because he's finally shared this part of himself. Because Tarkin is just, he's not a guy that's a feely, sherry kind of guy, but Oros is the first person he's ever really cared about. There's that. And then we kind of go back to Discovery as our crew is piercing the galactic barrier and heading out into unknown space, or space right outside of the universe, or the galaxy rather. It is a complicated series of events of how to get through the galactic barrier. The galactic barrier, of course, was referred to quite a bit in the original Star Trek series. But what they've come up with is just a way to entrap themselves in a bubble of the energy that radiates from the galactic barrier and ride that bubble until they get outside of it. And of course, that does provide its own difficulties, and it is, ultimately they are successful. Which leads us to, which is where the episode basically ends, and we go in to find the 10C.
And they're heading in, and at the end we get, I think, a little bit of payoff in the Saru President Tarina relationship, because they finally do share a meal together, and it gives us hope for the future. And I think this is a good segue to talk about the things that we liked and we did not like. And Justin, I want you to please chime in here. Let me start us off with what I didn't like. I didn't like Michael's decision to have the president share with the crew that last message. I thought it was the wrong call, and I'm going to say why. This is like if someone has to take one shot to save the world, and all of a sudden you tell them, oh, okay, sorry, the platform's going to start moving any second now. Like, no, they don't need the additional pressure. I mean, they know what's at stake here. And just to ratchet up a little bit is to just like make them have more pressure than they perhaps can shoulder. It's the crew did not need to know, in my opinion, what was going on with Earth and Navarre. They already realized the urgency going on. They did not need to ratchet it up to 12. But
I hope it's
okay with me.
I hope it's okay if I disagree with you.
Absolutely, I'm hoping so.
Because I've seen enough of these shows and we know how this goes. So let's go into our own alternate universe if we can, as to what happens if they make the decision not to tell the crew. What happens 2 episodes from now, right? It comes out in the middle of a crucial moment where somehow it slips, somehow the crew finds out, they don't have time to process it, and it's happening when it shouldn't, and now you've got the feeling of honesty and sharing among the crew is gone. So I think that both from a storytelling standpoint, because we know how it goes, but also just from a realistic standpoint, if you don't share this information with the crew and then it somehow comes out, you're in some crisis where she has to, let's say Michael ends up speaking to these extragalactic beings, and saying you're threatening our world, and the whole crew gives her the big look of like, what? And then all of a sudden the confidence is shaken. So I really do feel like it's one of those situations where there is no good decision, and this is the least bad of the bad decisions. So that's just my humble opinion.
I can sort of see why they, Michael might want to have held off on telling anybody, because that, she's been trying to kind of, stay ahead of this thing. But at the same time, I think it was right that people had a right to know that, yeah, Navarre and Earth are in direct line of sight of this thing. And that, it does add to the tension. But I think this kind of goes back to a thing that's been going on all season is, Michael and the president trying to see if they could trust each other beyond, what's going on between, with the DMA and with, rebuilding Starfleet and the Federation. It's been a lot. But I think they're finally found a middle ground, excuse me, where they can work together. And they do trust each other. It's just been it's been a uphill thing. I don't know how I feel about the scene overall, but I think, ultimately the right decision to tell everybody was made.
Just because you're gonna, like, if people find out, right? If people find out, down the line that you knew and you didn't say anything, that I think that you're looking at a compounding crisis. I actually kind of agree that if you could guarantee that the crew would not find out during the mission, if you could give me 100% guarantee they would never find out anyway, maybe do keep it from them so that they're not stressed out. But if there's any chance that they're gonna find themselves inadvertently discovering that this is something that has been kept from them, I think that is a bridge that you cannot cross. So from a tactical point of view, it seems to make sense to me.
I'm just going to have to disagree with the both of you, because I am on the side of Kovic. When Kovic says, well, I would love to be going with you, but I've got even more pressing matters than this one. And people are like, what? And he implies it's better if you all don't know. So I am more on the COVID side, but we can agree to disagree.
So while we're mentioning Kovic, because that's an interesting thing, he says, I got much more important things to speak of. It sort of struck me that you already have an ambassador in place in the president of the Federation has left to go on this mission, and now also the head of Navarre. Just because someone else couldn't make it, the person who runs the planet on a whim, because A, someone couldn't make it, and B, she wants to see if she can maybe get a new boyfriend, is going to be like, okay, I'm going to leave Navarre right now in the middle of the turmoil that last season we saw. There was so much turmoil. We're going to just leave them, and I'm going to go on this mission where if one ship blows up, the head of the Federation and the head of Navarre, and the vice, and at least the head of the Federation had a real reason to be there, because she is this expert negotiator, evidently. The the fact remains that you should not have the person in charge of Navarre just go, I'm gonna go too. But that's, that's Star Trek. That's, that is why you forgive on Deep Space Nine that you have a space station that's filled with all the most important people in the galaxy always. That, I get it, but it doesn't seem to be wise. But I guess you need to do it in order for the stakes to be high. I forgive Star Trek these things, but it is a little silly.
Well, it is still, just at the end of the day, it's still a TV show, and we should just sort of look at it as like, okay, we can't just create this character and then create, 2 or 3 other characters when, because that kind of goes overboard trying to keep names straight. And, basically somebody comes in expecting their character to be interesting, and all they do is, okay, I'm going to give out a few lines on the president of the Federation. And,
sure. And I think that's really smart. You're absolutely right, Josh. You're absolutely correct on that, because that they're sitting, again, to talk about a writer's room, they're sitting in the writer's room going, if Saru doesn't have this, what does he have to do this season when they're far away from everything going on in his planet, right? What does he have to, there's nothing for him to do other than to give out lines like he's Chakotay. So, right. So you have to give him something that comes with them on the journey. Same thing with Stamets, right? Stamets has nothing to do. So what do? They give him this new father figure relationship to have, because you have to give him something to do. And so I absolutely approve. I just think it's one of the things I always I used to make fun of Deep Space Nine in a big bad way, to go, so by the final episode of Deep Space Nine, the bartender's brother is now the head of Ferenginar, and Worf is briefly given the head of all of the Klingon Empire, until he then gives it over to Martok at the same time that the captain is pretty much a god. And you have the random general on the other side, I'm talking about Damar, of course, ends up being the head of all Cardassia, and like everybody by the end of that, and of course Odo is the most important person in the entire, and they just all happen to have been on the station at the beginning, and now they're all the most important people in the entire Federation are all on the station all at the same time. I think that it's I don't even want to call it a flaw. It's one of the things that's fun. I do roll my eyes, but I roll my eyes in sort of the same way. Like when I have a 10-year-old, and occasionally he'll do something that's kind of cool and cute, and I'll go, oh. And that's sort of when Star Trek does that and goes, it can't just be like an important Vulcan. It must be the most important Vulcan in existence must go on this mission. And I think it's a thing that Star Trek does, but I love it. Like, why not? That's one of the reasons I love the show so much, because it's just like, let's raise the stakes to impossible heights.
Well, this kind of goes to something that I've talked about for a long time, and I kind of refer to it as the Nimoy principle, which is something he talked about in his autobiography when he was directing something. That he feels like each character has to have something to do, something interesting to do, or just cut it out. And so, if the Federation president is just going to be somebody we put in a Cardassian Bajoran human hybrid mask.
Brilliant, by the way. Brilliant choice. But
brilliant. I love it. I think it was great. It was a great way to bring the Cardassians back into the forefront of Star Trek. But more importantly, if she was just there to show up in a couple episodes, well, that doesn't make much sense, because it takes time to make those prosthetics. Yeah. And you don't want to just waste your money. You want to be able to, this be a character you're going to use a lot. So it makes sense to have this story arc like this.
Yeah, no, I again, you're going to hear me pop up as we talk about different things on this episode about the slightly artificially raised stakes, but please don't let it come off as a complaint. I love it. I love it to death, and I smile so big when I go like, of course, all the most important people, of course, the most important people in everybody's planet, they're the most important person on their planet, right? Like Saru is the most important Kelpian that exists. And of course he's also just the first officer, and it's just like Odo's the most important, changeling to ever exist. And also, he's just a security officer. And I love it is a Star Trek trope from a long way back. And I adore, it's the same thing. Picard, sure, he's just a Starfleet captain who sometimes investigates planets, but also is the most important human in the entire Klingon Empire. Because of course he is. And it's just like, it's something I've always loved. I adore it. I am by no means complaining. But it makes me smile because it's just that little tiny bit of silliness that makes Star Trek not, let's say, as gritty as like a Battlestar Galactica. It's just enough to make it just slightly, I don't want to say it's camp because it's not camp. But it's like 2% camp that makes Star Trek touch my heart in sort of a warm, fuzzy way. I don't know if that's making any sense.
It does, but Justin, repeat after me, man.
Yeah.
It's
just
a TV show.
No, I bet you.
Blasphemy.
Hey, wait, but hold on. I disagree with you because if it is a TV show, but if it was just a TV show,
okay,
we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. That's if
no, that's true.
We're not sitting here like
having a television show.
Yeah, well,
it's an important TV show.
Yeah, so it is, yeah, and that's true. It's when you deal with sci-fi shows and you deal with sci-fi fantasy shows, and I'm a enormous fan of Star Trek. I can quote it chapter and verse. I'm an enormous fan of Buffy. I can quote that one chapter and verse at you as well. And it's something you kind of always have to do. You always have to elevate someone to be. It's the same thing as Star Wars. Like of course, everybody that you meet in Star Wars that just happens to run into each other, happens to Luke just happens to run into person after person who just happens to be the most important person ever. And that's just a thing that you do in these stories because it brings you along for sort of the like surfing the wave of that story. So I never want to say it's just a TV show, because if it was just a TV show, I wouldn't have like Star Trek decorations all over my house. Like, it would be, it is something that it's interesting. So I'm going to non sequitur for a second. I have my last film cancellation, Christmas cancellation, makes a point about these TV shows that we care more about these characters who are fictional, who don't exist. We care more about what happens to them than some people we actually know, some relatives we have. Like when Data, spoiler alert, when Data finally died at the end of Picard last season,
okay,
when he died at the and he sat there and he had that last moment of life, and he's like, and he gets to finally experience that last vital human moment. I was moved. I was choked up. It affected me in a major way. But I had like a fourth cousin who died a couple years ago. I knew them. I met them. We had hung out a couple of times. And I cared less about that than about this, because you become invested in an emotional way to these fictional characters in a way that you don't to some people that you actually know, because you get to see sort of their interiority. So I never want to say just a TV show, because at the end of the day, what are we but stories? When all is said and done, when we're all dead, we're just stories. And so are we any less than these stories? So I'm never a fan of saying it's just a TV show, because it's it touches us in a way that sometimes reality doesn't even. So, okay, end rant.
Well, to quote the doctor, in the end, we are all stories, but let's make them good ones. But
true,
being able to share stories about communication. And so I want to stick to the scene with Koic for another couple of minutes, because I thought there was a great talk about will they actually be able to communicate with species 10C? You have the universal translators in front of them, and that's been a great thing that Star Trek has had to explain how species can communicate with one another. But we're going beyond the galactic barrier, so the point is raised, will we actually be able to communicate with these people? Because we're talking first contact, and we're assuming, and it's wrong to assume that we're going to share a common language or even anything in common that will allow us easily to communicate at the start. So I was really happy.
Shaka when the walls fell.
Exactly, yes. His arms open. So I was very happy to see them having that discussion. And one thing also to throw out that we can talk about a little bit later is, so we're just sort of assuming that these are life forms, perhaps carbon-based life forms, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. What if they're all machines? What if this is just one big machine that was built, the creators have died, and it's just sort of an automatic pilot?
I hope not. I'm going to say this up front, Chris. I really hope not, because Star Trek has gone to the well one too many times on that one. I mean, you know, I'm hoping this is not Voyager 2.0. I do have my own prediction about this, but I want to wait and save on that one. Justin, what do you think?
I agree with you, Josh. I think it could be that, but I don't want it to be that, because frankly, I feel like there are other and better, more interesting new ideas that could also work. Like if they, if it was what we look at as a machine, but it is a naturally evolving, like instead of evolving in the way that we do, you said carbon-based life, if it's like somehow magnets became sentient, but it's a version of sentience that we don't even understand how that works. I think that Star Trek has a long history of successfully showing us a new kinds of life that we hadn't considered. And I hope that this is that. I hope that when the episode ends, I turn to my wife and I go, that was really neat. And if we find out that this is some, techno-organic, blah, 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 then maybe I'll like it, and maybe the story will be well written, and maybe it'll be good, but there's no chance that I'm going to turn around and go, ooh, that was neat. And I want to feel that way. And that's something, by the way, that this season has done. I was put off at first when they jumped 900 years in the future, but one of the things that they've managed to do by doing that is something that Star Trek has not really been able to do for me since like the first or second season of Next Gen, which was come up with new sci-fi crap that's neat, like the programmable matter and the holographic interfaces they have on the transporters and their thing. Like it's like when you first time you saw the holodeck and you're like, oh, that's cool. And they've, for the first time in a long time, had a bunch of that, oh, that's cool sci-fi stuff. So I hope this doesn't end up just being a bunch of nanobots, because that's like the show has done so well with being creative about the sort of, oh, that's cool aspect of it. If this ends up feeling like a trip to the well, I probably will be disappointed.
Like I said, when we get into predictions, I will share with you what I think is behind the DMA.
Ooh,
but I'm going to hold off on that. So, Chris, Justin, what do we think about what was it? Kovich said is, I'm going to be dealing with something more important than this. It's like, okay, there's something more important than the DMA. Okay, color me intrigued. What do you got going on here, Doc?
I don't even know.
What do you think it is?
It's the same principle I mentioned at the start of the show with the crew. I mean, I don't need to know.
Justin?
Yeah, I probably whatever the next spinoff of the show is going to be. Honestly, I think that it stinks to me of he is working on something that's going to be the whatever show is premiering next year. I don't think it has anything to do with this story. I could be wrong, but I have a feeling we're going to find out that he's been working the whole time on this thing with Tilly and also, Giorgio, and ta-da, here's the new show. And we're going to find that out at the end of this season. So it reeks to me of he's working on spin-off stuff.
Could be.
I don't think it's spin-off. I think it's going to set up for the next story arc for season,
maybe
for the next season. Yeah, but I don't think it's related to anything having to do with Strange New Worlds or Section 31. I think though it's kind of, I think there is something else going on there. But what could be bigger than the DMA that is going to require Kovich's attention? What could it be?
I'll save it for predictions because I do have a thought.
Okay, well, we'll save that for predictions, I think. So one other thing I thought was quite awesome was, and I talked a little bit about this at the beginning, was Tarkin's, finally being able to open up and talk about his friend, and we finally getting to see who this friend was, and it was a real person. This was not a scam, and this is obviously for. I've made this comparison before about Tarkin being like the Sheldon of this show, that he's this obsessive, super intelligent, super obsessive compulsive and hard to get along with kind of guy, who's always in everybody's business because he thinks he's that smart and he deserves to do it. And for someone like that, it's very hard for him to make a friend. And it's very clear that he cares more about Oros, not in a romantic way, but it's like this is the only real friend.
Or maybe in a romantic way. We're not sure. I think that it's left deliberately ambiguous.
Well, I mean, it's sort of vague, but I'm not sure if it's. I don't know if Tarkin is quite capable of that kind of level of commitment, but at the same time, I think he genuinely has genuine feelings, whether they're platonic or romantic, to Oros. I think that part's irrelevant. I think that his goal is he needs to get back to that friend because it's the one thing he treasures in the whole universe, is that friend.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here and say that I really didn't buy this attempt at converting how we feel about Tarka. I might have bought it more if we'd seen hints throughout the season that maybe he had the capacity for caring for someone beyond him, but all of a sudden to try and show us that, oh no, he is actually a caring person, I didn't buy it. It was too little, too late, and I'm going to stick by my guns by saying that the best decision that Book had all for like maybe perhaps the entire season was when he was going to strand him on a planet with no electricity.
I mean, I think that Tarka's character is helped enormously by the spectacular performance of the actor portraying him. He's fun to watch on screen, and if he weren't fun to watch on screen, then I would be beyond infuriated. First of all, it's his story's tired. I liked it better when it was O'Brien in a virtual Cardassian prison, because it's the same story. They don't like each other. They're locked up together. Time goes on. They learn to like each other, and then because of a pressure-based moral failing, the person telling the story feels bad. Feels bad because when the chips were down, they actually failed to do the right thing, and now they're haunted by it. It's the same exact story, with just some extra engineering in it. But also, and the reason I have a huge problem with it, I mean, whether it was too little, too late, I don't care. And it's not that I don't care on a personal level, but it's frankly, a wise man once said the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. And okay, we get it. You miss your friend, but your friend's not even dead. Your friend's not in trouble. You're not going to rescue your friend. You're literally going, my friend ended up in heaven. I want to go meet them.
I want to be there too.
Tarka has more in common with Soren from Star Trek Generations, frankly. Because it's I want to go to this nice place because it will make me happier. And it's not there's no, if this were, for instance, if this were his kid who was gonna die or something, and he had to get to him to save them, I might be more in for the story. But the fact is that he's I'm going to reshape the galaxy and make lots of people possibly suffer because I miss my buddy and I want to see him again. It is not a reasonable exchange. The cost is not, and again, it would be different maybe if his engineering pal was even in trouble, but he's not. He's fine. The show is telling us he's probably fine. He's probably super happy. It's just that Tarka wants to go visit him. I miss my friend too, but if I knew he was fine, my buddy Steve out in California was fine, I wouldn't, I don't know, possibly blow up Maryland so I can go for a visit. No, he's fine. Your friend is fine. You think he's in galactic heaven. He's like, it's the best place ever. He's fine. You have no reason to think that's not the case. So what are you doing? And why are we supposed to be on your side for this? I'm
Completely
sorry.
agree. He's an outdated Dr. Soren.
Yeah, and again, it makes him more of a villain in my eyes. And if you wanted us to side for him, you should have made it that like his friend was in torture, like in torture world. If I found out my friend's in torture world and I got to get him out, I have to move mountains to get him out. Okay, I might not agree, but okay, I see what's behind it. This is not that. This is my friend's at Disneyland and I want to go to Disneyland too. F everybody.
It's a weak motivation. It's a weak motivation for the character.
It makes him more of a villain.
Okay. Well, I didn't say that this didn't make Tarkin not villainous. Okay. I agree he's a jerk. I'm just saying he's a very human jerk.
See,
okay.
I felt like it's from jerk to sociopath. I think this makes him like.
All right, he's a sociopath. Yeah. Okay. I mean, certainly we're dealing with that.
No more caffeine for Justin.
Yeah, certainly we are dealing with the fact that we do seem to have more than our fair share of sociopaths. So in this world, and we can list Tarkin as one of them. But
I feel personally attacked.
On some good news, and I'm a huge fan.
I think we're getting pretty close.
Oh, I just want to say, President Saru and President Tarina, like that has been a great thing for me for the entire storyline for the season. I mean, I do want to see them together. I think it's been a slow boil, and putting on the ship. Yeah, I absolutely agree that the vice president and the president should not be on the ship because like who the hell is running the Federation at this point? But I do like seeing them sitting together for that meal. Finally.
Yeah, that was cool. I do. I have liked the Saru Turin story arc, this relationship. They definitely seem like they're the big power couple now, which we've been kind of watching all season. I agree.
Doug Jones owns the key to my heart. He just with just a movement and just a few words, that character just I feel real feelings for him whenever he's on screen, and so any chance you give him to struggle with feelings is good watching. It's good TV, and I dig the hell out of it.
Well, 3 words to that: Shape of Water.
Oh yeah. Oh, and he can be scary because he was the scariest guy ever on Buffy. So yeah.
Yeah, but I still want to meet the guy. I'm looking forward to the day that he's going to come to a convention near us in the Virginia, Maryland, DC area. So
everything I've ever heard is that he is as awesome as you think he would be.
Okay.
Hush.
Or no words in Hush.
Oh yeah.
So I want to kind of get into some theories and predictions here. And I'm going to say this. I have 2 possibilities of what we're going to find in the next episode when it comes to the 10C. First one is that Oros is actually going to turn out to be the one who's behind the DMA, that he got there and decided that he's going to, get even with the Emerald Chain, not realizing though, the Emerald Chain's gone. He's just going to destroy the galaxy to get revenge. Or we are going to find out that the DMA is, and what I've thought it could be all along, is an updated version of the Planet Killer from the original series. And we're going to finally find the species that created the original Planet Killer. Because if you guys remember from the classic episode, The Doomsday Machine, Spock speculated that the Doomsday Machine actually came from outside of the galaxy, possibly from another galaxy, but given at the rate it was consuming planets, I think it only was just right outside the galaxy, because there's no way it could have made it from, say, the Andromeda galaxy to this one without, constant food resupply, without getting constant nourishment. So I don't know why anyone else has not made that connection as of yet. Wonder if Kovic has realized this because, like Tarka, he's got to be the smartest guy in the room. So, but I think, Kovic definitely has a lot more empathy than Tarkin does. So those are also one other one. I think we are going to see the introduction of a new Starship Enterprise at the climax of the episode. Just because,
why do you say that?
I'm glad you asked. Because remember at the beginning of the season, they were showing off their brand new Jonathan Archer space dock thing. It's like, well, okay, why wouldn't you want one of the first new starships to come out of the line as a brand new Starship Enterprise to signal the dawn of a new golden age for the Federation? Because, obviously the Enterprise, every iteration of the Enterprise has been an important part of this grand unified alliance we call the Federation. So that's some of my theories and predictions for this final episode. Chris?
Number one, we will still not see a Klingon before the end of the season. Number two, Book and Tarka will have a much easier way of getting through the galactic barrier because Tarka, evil genius, but still a genius, he will figure something out so that their ride is going to be far less bumpy. 3, cliffhanger.
Justin?
I hope it's not a cliffhanger because if it's a cliff, I know they have something else in mind for next season, and if it's a cliffhanger to this story, that means they're going to have like the one episode to wrap it up, and I don't know. I kind of hope not. I think we're going to, and again, talk about tired storyline these days, but I'd love to see it. I think you're going to have a multiversal solution for this. They if you look at what's coming up in Picard, it's clearly about an alternate universe, alternate timelines. They mentioned the multiverse in this one, multiple universes. It's really in vogue in everything right now to be doing multiverses. So I think that you're going to be finding out maybe as part of the cliffhanger that that the J.J. Abrams verse and all of the fractured timelines that have happened and the discontinuities that you have in canon, that they're much like a recent movie that I will not mention. You're going to say it's all real, it all existed, and it's all coming together here in some kind of way. That is what I predict is going to happen. As for what the thing is, I like the idea of it being the Planet Killer. I don't know if your average person knows what that is, but it would be a neat Easter egg. So yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Well, I'm not, just didn't follow up on that. I don't think a lot of, beyond us who are devout Trekkies knew what the Guardian of Forever was until last season. And then we saw it, and when I saw it, I was like, because I was just freaked out there. But yeah, I mean, you could have something about it, and
that's true.
Again, this could be a moment where Michael consults Spock's archives to find out more about something. Which we saw her do a little bit of last season in the episode Reunification Part 3. So I think.
Well, if I can chime in with the theory that I had last week, that I'm still going to stick by it, is that if they're able to communicate with these beings, I still think that Book and Tarka are going to be offered up as like, okay, these are the guys who destroyed your machine the first time. Sort of as like, someone has to be held accountable. Here are the two guys. So I think both of them are also going to be offered up.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to get a character death. I don't think it's going to be Book. If I had to guess who you end up killing, I would say probably the vice president. I think that's who you're going to end up, because that gives you a chance to hurt Saru, and so I think that is probably going to be what happens.
Oh my God! Why do you want to hurt Saru? What has Saru done to you?
Because that's what you do. You create likable characters and then hurt them.
Or let me toss this out there: the president dies. The vice president has to head the Federation, and because he's now the president, he can't pursue the relationship with Saru that he wanted to, because he has less freedom than when he was vice president.
Oh, I like that too, and I like that character better. So I think that would be a great. That I would actually like to see that. I'd like to see more of her as president. That'd be neat.
Okay, well, I didn't realize that Turenne had become vice president. I thought she was still just president of Navarre. Did I miss something?
No, I think she's the vice president.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
Well, the vice president of the Federation.
Yeah,
Well, okay.
could be
Yeah,
wrong.
you were saying vice president and president, and I mean, I thought she was still just president of Navarre, not vice president of the Federation.
Or maybe she has to be. I don't know. I think that that's true. I am not 100% clear, Josh. Actually, I could be wrong on this as well.
Okay, all right. I just was wondering, did I miss something? Not get invited to a swearing-in ceremony or something here.
Well, we deliberately excluded you because we know how you've earned that discommendation from the Klingon Empire, and frankly, we don't want them to mess with us if they ever show up.
Yeah, look, in my defense, guys.
Holy crap! What if that's the cliffhanger? What if the cliffhanger is that there's a bunch of Klingons?
That could be. Yeah, I mean, I've thought that was a possibility all season because we have not seen Klingons in a good long while. And I've had my own theories about that. I think that I figured maybe they were going to go back to the drawing board and try to make them look more like the TNG era Klingons again, because the first season Discovery Klingons didn't go over so well. And
Yeah,
I mean,
and
we did see in second season they started to look more like the TNG.
They were like, haha, just kidding. Here we go. What we meant to say, here's a third possibility. Because multiverse is one thing, but also team ups a big thing. We could find a situation where there's a cliffhanger at the end of this that matches a cliffhanger that's at the end of Picard, that matches a cliffhanger that's at the end of Lower Decks, that matches a cliffhanger that's the end of the next season of Prodigy, and then you could have like a sort of a cliffhanger at the end of Strange New Worlds. You have sort of a Marvel's Defenders situation where they have a and they have all the sets and everything, so it'd be fairly easy to pull this off. You have like 10 episodes of a massive Star Trek crossover, because they've hinted to that on Trek movie. The people have said, yeah, we think we're probably going to see that. And I know that Patrick Stewart's only around for, I think, 1 or 2 more years of doing Picard, because he said that it's got a clear end. So maybe that's what we're going to see is a cliffhanger that leads to a crossover event.
Yeah, I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, I think that they have, they want to do something like Marvel, where, okay, we've got this big shared universe that takes place over 1,000 years, that, and we have the means by which we can make it plausibly sound that, okay, yeah, there's a story that's going through the 32nd century, and it's going through Picard and Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds, and everything else, that, you have something like that. But it'll be exciting to see what it's going to be. I think though, I think we it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with. So, okay.
But a question for all of us here. I mean, we're sort of assuming that next season will be them going back to the Federation. How do we know at the end of this season they're not going to stick around beyond the galactic barrier for whatever reason? Damaged engines or something, or just exploring?
I guess we don't know that, but I hope not. Strange New Worlds looks like it's going to set itself up to be like the original Star Trek, a planet of the week, trying new stuff, finding new way. That it looks like, I feel like we're going to get that with Strange New Worlds, and so I don't necessarily need that to be what Discovery is. As well, I want, so my buy-in on Trek has always been the universe of it. That's why I like canon so much. It's why I enjoyed, like, it's the idea of, like, yeah, the Enterprise is out there somewhere, but like on Picard, somewhere out there Deep Space Nine is floating around. Somewhere out there people are out there doing that, and I don't want to leave the Federation. I feel like I just got it back, so I don't want to leave it.
Me neither. I want to keep going with what's going on. I mean, it's an interesting idea, Chris, but I think, for right now, I think, I think maybe next season, and Justin, I mean, you kind of know a little bit more about what's going to happen next year, but I'm hoping that they, will keep going back with what they've started doing with trying to, bring more worlds back into the Federation itself. Because, I mean, I'd like to see what Andoria and Tellar look more like. I'd like to hear more about what's going on Earth.
And Cardassia.
Yeah. And I think certainly Discovery is the perfect vehicle, pardon the pun, for that. So, Henry, any last thoughts?
I guess I'll go first. For me, I feel like the last 2 seasons, and really the second season as well, but really the last 2 seasons has knocked it out of the park. If there's anybody listening to this show, first of all, there's probably nobody listening to the show that doesn't watch Discovery, because why are you listening to this show? But if you know people who are like, yeah, I tried Discovery and I bailed out, I agree with you. First season Discovery was a little rocky, but that was true for DS9, which is my favorite. That's true for Next Gen. Only really the original series had a really strong first season. Everything has improved, and this show is so leaps and bounds better. I just wish that more people would give it another chance, because it is spectacular. I was saying to my wife, I turned over, I said, I can't believe that we get this. I love the fan films, but they were all we had for like 10 years. That and Trek-Off. But I love that I get this. I love the quality of the acting and the quality of the writing. I'm into the characters. I love the diversity. I love the stories they're telling. I love, like I said earlier, the neat sci-fi stuff that they're throwing at me. I love it is firing on all cylinders and giving me everything that I want. And I feel lucky as hell that we're getting this, because it's, we had some real emptiness in the Star Trek universe, and this is it's just has never been better. So that's kind of my thought.
Chris?
I agree. Rocky first season, but they have threaded the needle since then. It is so good, and I love that we still have an overarching mystery, which is how and why was Zora left by herself, as we saw in the Star Trek shorts. So I love that we have the immediate short-term concerns, and they've given us a long-term mystery concern. So watch the show.
Yeah. That's right, folks. Please, more than ever, I think we need Star Trek now more than ever, and because it is a ray of hope for a better tomorrow. And so, anybody who's watching it who maybe watched it a little bit in the first season, thinking, please come back, give it another chance. It is really worth it, to have these adventures with Michael and Saru and Paul and the rest of the gang.
And if you didn't, and if Josh, about you saying that's what we need right now, anybody who's looking just slightly below the surface, the continual message of, you might have vastly different political and beliefs about the way things should be, but until you start talking to each other, nothing's going to go right. That is, they keep hammering that. That's sort of the theme of the last 2 episodes, which is, even if the person across from you believes something you think is ultimately destructive, unless you speak to them and try and work with them and find common ground, you're never going to get anywhere. And that has been the theme of the last 2 episodes. And I think it's a theme that is prevalent in our times, probably maybe more than any time recently. So I think it's a brilliant way of using sci-fi to say, hey, be better, which is what Star Trek has always done.
Always. So I think on that note, we're going to wrap it up, gentlemen. Justin, thank you for joining us. Tell our watchers where they can find you.
Sure. I'm at Ninja Director on Twitter. If you are so inclined, I have a brand new album of rock music that is just dropped on Spotify a couple months ago, and has gotten rave reviews. It's called Hers. and my name is Timpane, like Tim and window pane. So Justin Timpane on Spotify or wherever you listen to music, you will be able to find my new album, Hers, and my last two movies, A Christmas Cancellation, and well, that and the first couple of the Ninjas versus trilogy are on Amazon, and you can find the movie The Distanced on YouTube.
Great. Thank you. Chris?
Thank you, everyone, for watching our show. Muchísimas gracias a todos nuestros espectadores. I would like to invite you to follow my work on Verde Cosplay on Instagram, especially if you were at KatsuCon just this last weekend. Lots of great cosplay. If you see yourself in one of my pictures, make sure to tag yourself. And also a shout out to my friends at Shore Leave and breaking news. Summer Glau is coming to Shore Leave this July. So make sure to circle your calendars and come to Shore Leave in July in Hunt Valley, Maryland.
Excellent.
And then once again, I am Josh Pritchett. You can follow me on Facebook at Josh Pritchett Jr. on Facebook. And my book, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, is still available on Amazon and Kindle. So, and I will also be there at Shore Leave signing copies. So if you've already bought a copy, please come see me and I'll be happy to autograph it for you. So
Yay.
Until next week, my friends, live long and prosper. Kapla!
Bye.
Joe Land True.